Season 2 of Marvel Rivals is quickly becoming the season of Dive. So Dive players rejoice you finally get to play the game. Except for you, Black Panther, you're still kinda underwhelming. And today I'm gonna be teaching you how to play against one of the most annoying comps in the game currently. So whether you're a D1 Jeff hater, or even someone who absolutely despises Spider-Mans, this is your perfect spot for all things Marvel Rivals. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the video. Now when it comes to playing Dive, there is a pretty major problem, and that's what we call uptime. A lot of other content creators have talked about it, but let me just re-emphasize it. Basically, uptime is just how often a character is actually doing stuff in a fight, whether that's healing, dealing damage, making space, zoning, or whatever. Most characters in this game are always doing something, whether it's Magneto blocking the front line, Emma Frost zoning enemies away from the front line, duelists like Hela, Bucky, Namor, constantly applying pressure, dealing damage, and strategists constantly healing their teammates. Even if they're not getting tons of eliminations or doing a lot, they're still doing something for their team. But in the case of divers, it's a little bit different. When they're not diving, they're essentially not doing really anything. Like, think about it like this. If you're not actively in the backline using your mobility, throwing out your melee combos or your bursts, you're just chilling, and that's the core issue. Divers have downtime, and no one else really does. That means for long stretches of the game, they're not applying pressure, they're not helping hold space, and they're not creating value, so the moment they do engage, it has to count. Namor can do both. He can play with his team in the backline, worrying about the enemy divers and flankers, or throw out his squid turrets and poke the front line. He's still doing something even when he's not necessarily diving. Then in comparison, when you talk about a character like Black Panther, he's essentially all in or out. There's not a lot of in-between room. And that's just how a lot of the divers in this game are. They're either on or completely off, and that's why they're under so much pressure to make those engagements worth it. You have a 4 to 5 second window to do something impressive, and if you don't, that's pretty much it. You're gone, and your team just played a 5v6 for no reason. And another thing that a lot of players overlook is that you don't even need to get an elimination on the diver to actually shut them down. Even if you're poking from a distance, healing, staying with your team, their diver is lurking, waiting to make a move. Right now, you're winning, even if you're just chilling. Landing a few shots and topping off your frontliners, you're still doing more than their Black Panther who's just hiding somewhere. Now, a major mistake that I see a lot of Adam Warlock or Loki players make when they're playing against a dive comp or dive characters is blowing their cooldowns too fast. And what I mean by that is using your regeneration domain too early as Loki, or using your soul bond as Adam, again, too early. You have to remember when you're playing Adam Warlock and you have that soul bond ability, it's not just a way of saving your teammates, it's also there to help save yourself. So you really need to use it for the best time possible. That's when you yourself are getting dove by a Black Panther, then you pop your soul bond ability. You never want to pop it too early and push in. That's the biggest mistake I see. The same thing can be said with Loki. You either want to save it for a teammate that's about to get nuked by some type of ultimate or about to get eliminated, or you use it when you're getting dove. Because of the changes made to Soulbond and the regeneration domain ability, it's even more important now to really time your cooldowns. You have to think that divers are a risk. If you don't help them succeed, or if you play smart and wait them out, their biggest strength becomes their biggest weakness. They are a very high risk, high reward playstyle. Now there is a major fundamental about dive heroes, how they operate, and that's the cooldown rotations. No matter what diver it is in the game, whether it's Spider-Man, Black Panther, Venom, Iron Fist, and so on, they all follow a rhythm. They go in, burn all their cooldowns to try and make a play, and then they're out, waiting for their abilities to come back. That's the cycle or cooldown rotation. Now something you have to pay close attention to is when a diver is setting up, waiting, positioning, lurking, whatever they want to do, it doesn't necessarily feel like pressure. Your team's walking up and everything seems calm. No one's fighting you, nothing's contesting you, so what happens? You overextend, you push in too deep, you flank too wide, then bam, that's when the dive hits. It's kind of like a cheetah or lion, laying low until a gazelle leaves its pack to maybe hit that source of water. Then it strikes. Maybe you're a tank who's pushed forward too far and your supports vanish behind you. You're a DPS or duelist flanking alone, and then the backline gets deleted while you're nowhere near the fight. So how do you stop this? One way to counter dive is to be super proactive. So before you do anything, know what you're playing against. Check the scoreboard, see what they're playing. Are they on Spider-Man, Black Panther, maybe Venom, Iron Fist? Or are they even running a Captain America or a Jeff? Too many players walk straight to the point and instantly try to make an aggressive play before knowing who they're actually going against. And sure, if you're the divers, sometimes you can get away with it, but if you're not and you haven't identified the threat, you're basically feeding the enemy team free fights. Dive thrives on catching people off guard, and that's what happens all the times. Teams don't respect the setup, lose a fight or two, and only start adapting by the time you're calling, "Watch out for Black Panther, he's already wiped your team twice." This is also why recontest dives, especially in overtime, are so strong. People aren't thinking about the dive anymore, they're focused on cleanup, they're rushing to touch point, and that's when the dive lands clean again, because no one's conditioned to expect it. Now the second step is understanding. People assume, oh, they're not diving right now, we're fine. They must have rotated, I can go for a flank or use a cooldown. Well, you're actually wrong. Dive heroes have to act. That's the cooldown rotations we were talking about earlier. They can't just sit forever, they need value. So you can bet 100% they will dive eventually. It's not an if, it's a when. So what do you actually do? How do you break out this constant dive rotation? The first step is to stay conservative. Don't burn cooldowns too early. Don't play aggro until you've either shut down the dive, forced them to retreat, or eliminated them. Holding your position, hold your tools, and you'll be better off. The third step to playing against this is learning the timing. Recognizing that a dive is coming is one thing, but if you want to shut them down consistently, you need to learn when and how that dive is going to happen. Now, this honestly takes a ton of game sense, and honestly, the best way to build that is by playing dive heroes yourself, or at the very least watching good ones, and you'll start to recognize some patterns. Once you start seeing these habits, you can pre-position, pre-aim, pre-fire, freeze them mid-dive, crowd control them out of their combos, and blow them up before they actually get any value. But anyways, here's a little bit of a TLDR of how to win against dive. First is scout fast. Know what you're facing before you engage. Expect the dive. It's not a question of if, it's when. Respect the cycle. Wait for their cooldowns, then move. Learn their patterns either by playing dive or studying it. Then, of course, interrupt their rhythm. One shutdown ruins the whole cycle. Play like that, instantly their dive comp doesn't feel scary, it feels predictable. Let's zoom in on one of the biggest vulnerabilities in any dive comp, and that's mitigation. Dive heroes live and die by burst value. They're banking on their ability to blow up a target in a narrow window of time and disappear before the enemy can react. But the moment you introduce sustained survivability into that equation, tools that reduce, delay, or outright deny the burst, the entire engagement falls apart. Think of abilities like Magneto's Bubble, which acts like a force field that temporarily erases the diver's kill potential, or Soul Bond, which effectively multiplies this forward's survivability by sharing incoming damage with a tank. Or Loki's Regeneration Domain, turning bursts into healing, doesn't just reduce impact, it reverses it. These kinds of tools don't save lives, they puncture the momentum dive heroes rely on. However, there is a caveat. These cooldowns are limited use and long recharge. Soul Bond is 40 seconds and Loki's Regeneration Domain is also 30 seconds as well. These absolutely shut down one dive cycle, but that's it. Dive heroes like Spider-Man, Black Panther are going to reset, reposition, and come back swinging before your cooldowns are ready again. If your entire answer to dive pressure is hope the cooldown is back, you're going to get rolled on the follow-up. Now, positioning is your first line of defense. That's where your positioning awareness becomes your real MVPs. The truth is, your ability to survive doesn't start when you get dove. It starts before they ever press their engage button. If you are reacting late, even the best defensive cooldowns won't save you. You should always be tracking where the diver is before they're close enough to strike. Are they creeping up left side? Then you need to reposition early, rotate right, kite them, deny access. Every extra second a dive hero spends traveling through open space is a second they're exposed and vulnerable. They're not dangerous unless they're in close range, and you can make it painful for them to close that gap. Don't just wander or sit still. Play proactive anti-dive footsies. Keep adjusting your spacing, constantly drift away from their angle of approach, and maintain sightlines for your team to follow up. Pinging enemy flankers or tracking audio cues like Black Panther's leap or Iron Fist's dash helps everyone get ready. That awareness snowballs. Then let's talk about dragging out a fight. The longer you delay their impact, the more pressure the diver feels to force value. If a dive takes too long, it becomes high risk. Their teammates might overextend to support them, or they might overcommit to a half-baked play. That's your window to punish. Instead of relying on a Soul Bond or Regeneration Domain as your crutch every single time, treat them like your emergency lever. The real day-to-day defense is staying ahead of the diver's tempo, tracking their setup, disrupting their line of sight, and making them work for every inch of ground. If you play it right, those mitigation tools will feel less like a lifeline and more like a checkmate. Your awareness bleeds their momentum, and by the time they finally dive in, they're walking straight into a coordinated, fully prepared defensive instead of a blindside ambush. Being prepared is always way better than simply reacting. If you have the plan, stick to it, you should win your engagement. Of course, results may vary, and if you're looking for better results in Marvel Rivals, make sure to like and subscribe, as I have a ton of Marvel Rivals guides, tools, whatever you need to improve yourself. But back to the video. If there's one thing that shuts down dive heroes harder than mitigation, it's crowd control. Divers rely on speed, agility, and tight execution. take that away and they're just sitting ducks. The moment you root, stun, slow, knock back, knock down, knock up any type of dive hero, their entire value collapses. These characters are built around high mobility and short time to kill windows. Crowd control breaks that equation instantly. Again, a slam, sleep, or hook can delete a diver's threat level on the spot. Picture Black Panther, mid-pounce only to get slammed into the ground, his momentum's gone, his reset's denied, and death practically guaranteed with follow-up. Same goes with Spider-Man or even Venom, get caught in a well-timed piece of crowd control and their entire engage collapses like a house of cards. Strategists like Luna, Mantis, or even a duelist like Winter Soldier bring key forms of crowd control into fights that can drastically swing the outcome. Even soft crowd control effects like slows are brutal, just enough to stop a diver from escaping clearly, or prevent them from weaving in and out of the fight like they want to. A slow diver is a track diver, and a track diver is a dead diver. But the key isn't just having crowd control, it's using it with a purpose. There's something I like to call layered crowd control, layered CC, otherwise known as the Art of the Shutdown. Unfortunately, one stuff isn't enough anymore. Against dive teams that rotate threats, you need overlapping control, not just to peel, but to punish. The goal isn't just survival, it's elimination. If Venom dives in and eats a slam, then a Winter Soldier arm grab, then a Mantis sleep, he's not just zoned out, he's more than likely going to get eliminated. That's how you turn your defense into a winning play. You want to stack your crowd control, not scatter it. Don't panic press everything at once on different targets, coordinate it. When your tools hit the same diver in quick succession, you extend their vulnerability window and give your team time to delete them. Crowd control isn't just about shutting someone down temporarily, it's about creating a window to finish the job. This is why solo play struggles to stop dives consistently. Random teammates often blow their peels early, miscommunicate, or don't follow up with their initial crowd control. But in a duo or a trio stack, everything changes. You have partners you can trust to save their cooldowns, follow your pings, and double tap a diver the moment they appear. One Mantis sleep is okay, a Mantis sleep into a Luna freeze into a focus burst, now that is lethal and that will quickly make that player swap. Now let's talk about the dive defense dynamic in ranked. It's worth noting that coordinating a dive is way harder than coordinating a response. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, and in ranked, for whatever reason, no one ever uses their mic to communicate to one another, so it's really hard to set up a dive. Getting 3 random players to time a simultaneous dive on a single backline target is a tall order, but getting 3 people to dump their crowd control abilities on the first Spider-Man they see who jumps in, well, that's easy. Defense is inherently reactive, which makes it easier to coordinate in solo queue, even passively. And yet, dive still finds value in ranked because many players don't just use their crowd control abilities properly, or they blow it early without a follow-up plan. Divers exploit this lack of discipline, so if you're struggling, the answer isn't just to pick Mantis or Luna, it's to preserve your tools, plan your response, and communicate them. But if you skipped ahead and you don't want to listen to all of my yapping, the TLDR is if you want to kill dive, you need to kill their movement. Crowd control doesn't just stop a diver, it dismantles their entire rhythm. A well-timed stun is a death sentence. A coordinated crowd control chain is a shutdown highlight reel. Stack your control, protect your tools, and play with at least one person you can count on to back you up. In a world full of Spideys and Black Panthers leaping from the shadows, control is your light switch. Flip it on and they vanish. It might sound ironic, but one of the most frustrating things for dive heroes to deal with is other mobile characters. While divers pride themselves on agility and unpredictability, they hate fighting opponents who can match or exceed their mobility. And that's certainly true across all roles, whether it's a slippery strategist or Rocket Raccoon, or an evasive duelist or even a repositioning tank. And you might be asking yourself why? Because mobility gives control. It lets you dictate the where and when of the fight. You're not stuck waiting to be jumped, you can kite, disengage, or reposition preemptively before the dive even begins. Take heroes like Psylocke, Jeff, or Rocket, these characters have tools to reposition rapidly, making them incredibly frustrating targets. A diver might land on their backline, but if the enemy support has already zipped out of range or is fighting from an unreachable angle, that dive is instantly losing value. One of the less talked about weaknesses of divers is how vulnerable they are during setup. Before the dive even begins, these heroes need to position carefully, usually on a flank, high ground, or an off angle to prepare their burst. But a mobile enemy can actively disrupt that setup cycle. Let's say a Black Panther is holding a corner, ready to pounce. If a Star-Lord, Adam Warlock, pokes or pressures him during that staging phase, he's forced to react. If he commits his abilities early just to push the harassers away, his dive is blown before it even starts. He needs to retreat, reset his cooldowns, heal, and reposition, burning valuable uptime for nothing. This dynamic turns mobility into more than just defense. It becomes a form of premeditative denial. Now, one high-level technique to leverage mobility is something called marking, where a fast character essentially shadows a diver or keeps them occupied, preventing them from engaging freely. Let's say an enemy is running a dive comp, Black Panther, Spider-Man, Venom. You're playing a mobile DPS, trying to kind of mirror what they're doing. And instead of sitting back, you take proactive angles to harass and disrupt their staging. You don't need to get an elimination or anything like that. You just need to make them uncomfortable, force cooldowns, deny a clean initiation. Now, another major thing a lot of players don't really do is punishing the exit. You have to think, dive isn't just about getting in, it's also about getting out. And guess what? The exit is when most divers are at their weakest. After they expend everything trying to get a pick, they are usually sitting on long cooldowns, low health, and limited mobility. That's when a fast enemy like Star-Lord, Iron Man, Psylocke can swoop in, chase them down, and finish the job. This makes high mobility heroes the perfect anti-dive finishers. If your supports survive the initial burst, your mobile teammates can turn the tables by punishing the diver during their escape. A lot of people only assume that Namor is the only real counter to dive, but you have characters like Psylocke, Star-Lord, all these highly mobile characters, yet no one really understands that at all. People really believe that Namor is the one and only anti-dive character in the entire game. Well, newsflash, he's not. Now, here's the TLDR if you didn't want to listen to all my yapping. But what's the best way to beat movement is with movement. Divers thrive when their opponents are slow, static, or out of position, but when you throw fast, reactive, and mobile enemies into the mix, you break their rhythm. Whether you're peeling with repositioning, denying setups, marking targets, or chasing exits, mobility neutralizes dive from every angle. The more you move, the less they get to do. Now, when all else fails, there's one timeless counter to dive compositions that has remained consistent across metas and titles: big health bars. Dive heroes thrive on speed, burst, and isolation, but they crumble when forced to chew through chunky targets that simply refuse to die. You have to remember that divers are built around short windows of engagement. They leap in, attempt to burst a target in seconds, escape before cooldowns of CC can punish them. But if that target doesn't die quickly, if it's a Thor, Emma Frost, or Hulk, that dive falls apart. You're suddenly trading into a frontline that outsustains, outtanks, and often out-CCs your entire combo. Failed dive is just neutral, it becomes a liability. Large health totals naturally resist burst damage, especially when paired with mitigation abilities, armor scaling, or sustain. But even beyond that, tanks don't get divers what they want, and that's value. No diver wants to spend 12 seconds chasing down a 1200 HP Emma Frost sitting in iron form while her teammates collapse in the fight. Divers get value from fast eliminations, and tanks turn that into a slog. Furthermore, when a diver spends their kit engaging on a tanky target, they're now trapped in the enemy lines with no value earned and no cooldowns left. If you're looking to completely shut down a dive heavy comp, then here are some things you should consider. First, you have a composition of triple tank: Emma Frost, Hulk, and then a Magneto or some other character, maybe Thing or something like that. Your backline support's going to be Rocket Raccoon, as he's a little bit harder to hit and a little bit faster. You could have Cloak and Dagger, who can easily escape if getting chased by diving characters. And of course, you have Mr. Fantastic, who I think is a, well, fantastic choice for anyone trying to deal with dive, and is just a solid pick in general. Now, of course, there's a ton of different team compositions, but I believe Emma Frost has to be number one when you're trying to do an anti-dive comp. I believe she's really great at absorbing everything that's coming at her. She can easily grab divers out of, rotations or diving tools or dashes, and easily slam them to the wall and one-shot them. And then you could follow up with another bruisier tank, maybe the Thing, as he can limit people's mobilities. I think it's a great pick. Then for your supports, I would run a Rocket and a Loki. Double supports, Rocket has a ton of mobility. For Loki, you have your Lamps or Regeneration Domain ability, which again, is super solid. For your duelists, you'll probably run a Star-Lord and a Psylocke. These are your mobile DPS that can move around quickly, punish divers, things like that. So what exactly is the takeaway of this? Large health pools don't just stop divers from securing eliminations. They deny their entire purpose. Every extra second a dive hero spends swinging at a tank instead of finishing off a squishy support is a second closer to stuns, slows, focus fire, and collapsing. And that's why tanks, bulkier comps, and smart positioning are essential tools in countering aggressive dive strategies. Now let me quickly leave you with 3 tips. The first tip is don't let divers surprise you. You need to train yourself constantly scan flanks and high ground, call out diver positions early and often, and pre-position yourself accordingly based on the rotations. The earlier you spot a diver's approach, the less likely they are to succeed. Don't give them the element of surprise. The second tip is to hold cooldowns like your life depends on it, because it does. You always want to delay cooldowns until the dive begins. Be ready to use them reactively, not preemptively. Think in cycles. Divers engage in timed bursts, match their window with your escape or counter tools. Following that, learn on your team when your own abilities are down. Stay near allies who can peel or reposition to terrain that gives you safety without receiving a dash or invincibility. Also, don't get aggressive until the enemy dive blows their kit and disengages. That's your window to turn the fight. Now, one last essential tip is to fight in the open. You want to fight in open spaces where your team can see and help you out. Hug sightlines and firing arcs. The more eyes on the diver, the faster they can get punished. Pull fights into areas with verticality or crossfire potential. Think of it like this: if your teammates can't see you, then they can't help you. Now, let me give you some of my recommended counter dive heroes. For Vanguards, the first one being Emma Frost. As she has diamond form, she can easily eliminate divers, grab them out of air, grab them out of dashes, and slam them to the wall, getting rid of them. Then you have characters like The Thing, who could easily stop their movement abilities for a short duration so they can easily shred them down. Then of course Hulk, who can exile said diver, and this is a all-around great bruiser and annoyance to deal with. Then of course Magneto, who can bubble his teammates, save them for a second. Pretty useful in a lot of scenarios. For duelists, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Namor, still probably one of the better anti-dive characters. He still does a lot, mainly due to the fact that his turrets can track the enemies, help you figure out where they are, things like that. Then you have characters like Star-Lord, who I think is a very good anti-dive character who can easily catch up on the divers, things like that. Then Psylocke, who can easily burst them down. Winter Soldier, who's still decent, can easily grab people out of the air, grab them out of the dash, knock them up, slow them down, things like that. Then we have Scarlet Witch, who I think is also very good at anti-dive and anti-flyer as well. Easy tracking, can stun, do a lot. Now there's definitely more characters, those are just like my top picks. Then for strategists, we have Adam Warlock, of course, with his Soul Bond. We have Loki with his Regeneration Domain ability. I say Rocket Raccoon because he is super mobile, can do a lot of healing, is pretty good at living, and can do damage up close and personal if need be. I'll say Cloak and Dagger, especially when you go into Cloak's form, where you can dismiss, blind the diver, things like that. Jeff is another good pick, very annoying to deal with. He can also be a diver as well if need be. Then of course we have Mantis Luna, who can freeze and sleep the divers, so also pretty decent picks. But in theory, that's how you can shut down dive in Marvel Rivals, although results may vary. Now before anybody gets angry, this video was actually recorded the day of Season 2, the day it dropped. I've had a ton of other videos coming out, so I couldn't get it out till now. But anyways, if you're new here, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Greatly helps out the channel. We're going for 20,000 subscribers. Comment down below if you want to see any more of these videos, what other videos you would like to see in the future. But nevertheless, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one.